trying to, this is my second time doing live, so it's working. But welcome back to Do More Art. I'll get out of the frame here in just a second so you all can see the supply list. Today what we're going to be making is a chalk mosaic, and I'm going to show you all some different techniques on how to apply chalk to your pavement. There are different ways than just, putting it on there, and I can't wait to show you all those. So let me step out of the frame so you all can see the supply list, and I am going to be back in just a second. So to start, if you are just wanting to learn how to do the mosaic itself, all you're going to need is sidewalk chalk and masking tape or painter's tape. I have painter's tape. Either will work just fine. I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way so you all can see what I'm working on. I've already made a little square. You don't have to make a square. It can fill your whole driveway, your sidewalk, wherever you want to do it. It can be as big or small as you want. But what I'm going to do is you're going to want to stick to geometric shapes, which mainly like triangles and squares and things like that. But I'm going to be focusing only on triangles for this piece. So you're just going to take your tape, rip it off wherever you think needs it, and then slap it into your square, wherever works for you. And again, just like your square or your space, it can be as big, triangles can be as big or as small as you want. So I'm going to take a minute and fill the square up. There is no right or wrong to do this. What's so great about these kind of projects? If you mess up, no one knows. Get all this taped down, and then I will check on you all in just a second. Make sure you all are doing okay. Say hi to some of my friends and people are on here. You also don't have to do triangles if you don't want. You can do, like I said, squares. You could do diamonds or any other kind of shape that you want to focus on. You can also make a design out of it. I've seen some people make hearts or even an animal, their favorite, So there's a lot of different options you all can do with this. I don't really have a process for doing this. I'm kind of just laying it down wherever I feel it needs to go. You can do the same, or like I said, you can try to sketch something out and make a design out of it. Right now I'm just getting the taping process down, and then I'm going to show you all some different ways on how to blend and apply chalk to So this is a piece that we're going to be working on. Just going to check on you all. So far so good. Alright, so there are 3 different ways, at least that I know, and that I'm going to share with you, on how you can apply your chalk to pavement. If you find another way, or you already know of another way that you can do this, comment, share it so that other people can do it and so that I can learn how to do it as well. But these are the ways that I know. There are, here's my chalk. If you don't have any chalk, I just got mine at the Dollar Tree. It was super cheap. My umbrella just fell over. It's okay. There we go. Alright, so actually I'm going to bend it down so you all can see me blending up. So this is when the optional pieces of the supply list come in hand. You can do your regular chalk, which I'm sure most of you all know is just drawing onto the pavement like this. Then that's dry on dry. There is also a technique where you can do wet on dry. And I know it sounds weird to mix water with chalk, but it actually works pretty well. So what you do is you're going to take your piece of chalk and you're going to soak it in your water for 10 seconds. No longer, no less. Don't really know what happens if you go less, but you don't want to go any longer because then it'll just ruin your chalk and that's not fun. Alright. So then it's wet and it goes on. You can see how much more vibrant that is compared to this is the same piece of chalk I just used. You can see how much more vibrant it is. And then also, it is way easier to blend it with other colors. The only negative side of using this process is that you do waste more chalk, unfortunately. But it does dry the same. As you can see, it's already starting to dry on the sides. And then the last technique, which I never learned about until just recently, is you take a paintbrush and you dip it in your water and you paint wherever you are going to draw. You're going to take a dry piece of chalk. Don't use your wet one. Take a dry piece of chalk and draw on top of it. It kind of has the same effect as doing the wet on dry. This is dry on wet. The only difference that I've been able to tell is that it's not as, I don't know what that texture would be. I guess it's not as smooth. It's still smooth, but it's just not as like creamy almost as this one is. And you also don't use as much chalk as you do with this process. So if you wanted to do the wet on wet kind of thing, I would suggest this one over this one. But it's ultimately up to you. It is your preference. However you want to do your piece. You can choose all 3 of them if you want, or you can choose your favorite one. But I kind of prefer these 2 just to blend. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So this one's already kind of wet, so I'm not going to soak it. Just get it a little bit more damp. Let's see this one. So here is blue, all wet. Let's do green instead. So I'm going to soak my green. Next to it, and it is way easier for you to blend with your fingers. See how nicely that just mixes together? It's so pretty. The other way of doing that is with the paintbrush. And again, this is just what I prefer, the wet on wet, if you're going to blend things like that. I personally think it blends better this way. Using water in some way, whichever way you want is up to you. Take your paintbrush and do blue and yellow this time. So here's my blue. And here's my yellow. And just take your finger again. And see, like I said, it blends well, not as well as this one, but it still blends a lot easier than if you were just doing dry on dry. Now, what if you're like, I don't want to use water, Miss Bailey. I just want to do regular chalk. You can, and you still want to blend maybe, okay? You still can. It's really easy. It may hurt your fingers more than doing these because, like I said, it kind of makes it a little softer and creamier. Is what I thought. But if you are going to use the dry on dry method, the original, traditional method, I would suggest getting an old washcloth or an old towel or sponge of some kind, and then that way you can take your chalk and have them next to each other and then blend them that way. And it does kind of scruff up, but if you're making a really big piece, it kind of makes like an ombre effect, and it comes along really well, in my opinion. But there is that method instead of just using your finger, because after a while it will start to hurt your finger. I don't want anyone to have blisters or anything nasty like that. So now that we have our techniques, I'm just going to go through a couple of these triangles so that you can see how it works on the tape, and we'll go from there. So let me lift this back up. Hello. Alright, so I think I'm going to do the wet on wet method for a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and use one that I already have. Like I said, you can mix up these methods together. They still look really neat all together. Tilt it down just a little bit. And if you want to fill them in solid color, you can. I was just wanting to show you all this method in case you did want to blend colors together. It kind of creates a more vibrant, diverse picture, in my opinion. Yeah, do what you want. This is your piece. You have complete control over it. If you wanted to, you could blend a lot easier with soft chalk. And if you wanted to, you could use a washcloth for that part too. I like using my hands for just about everything though. Alright, let's do another triangle. This time I think I'm gonna do dry on dry. And actually there was one thing I forgot to mention in this little part is you don't have to do just blending. You could do something that I learned in elementary school, and I've used it ever since. I love it. It just really makes things pop. So what you want to do, actually I'm going to take this red just because it's a little brighter. What you're going to do is it's going to be dry on dry, and you are going to press down really hard on the edges, only on the edges. Press hard around the edges. Press. To blend it in, just to smooth it on the sides. Then what you can do, if you're using your washcloth, you can actually just fill it in. I would not recommend doing this part with your hands. Please use a washcloth if you're going to try this process. So now you can see how it's darker on the outside. I've lost a little bit here, so I'm going to go over it just a little bit. that's just another way that you can do filling in your triangles, your shapes. But I'm going to keep going. Feel free to follow along or do your own. And I would love, 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 love to see your all's creations, what you come up with. I bet you all can come up with some really cool designs, and I'd love to see that. So I'm going to fill in a few more. Try a few different processes that I've done up here for you all. Try the paintbrush one. So you don't have to mix with just two colors either. You can blend as many colors as you want. I might do 3 in this one. We'll see. It's wet. That's another thing actually, if you don't like all the dust that chalk kind of produces when you draw like this one, whenever you saw it blue away, there's like a cloud of smoke. These, if you do it with the wet process, there's like, nothing. So, if you don't like the dust, then I suggest using the wet methods. I'm going to fill up just a few more of these, and I'm going to take off the tape so you can see what it looks like once you get most of it finished. And as you can see, I don't really have a strategy for what I'm doing here. I'm just having fun. And that is exactly what I hope you all do too. It's just a good project to get outside, get moving, get your energy going. Just have fun. Just one color, blending it together really fills in all the spots that your chalk doesn't get into the pavement. Keep losing my room. Dry on wet, where you use the paintbrush. I think that's starting to become my favorite. It's just, it becomes a lot easier to mix onto the pavement. No, it's super easy. There's a flag, sorry. This one, I think, and then I'm going to show you all what it looks like with the tape. I know I didn't film the whole thing, but it will probably take me all day if I try to do the rest of it. So ideally, you wouldn't, if you were going to, like I just did dry on dry, even though I was doing these two wet on dry. Ideally, you want to keep them the same process within each triangle that you're doing. But if you forget, like I did, that's okay. Chalk is very forgiving, and we can fix it no problem. As we saw earlier, they dry pretty much the same way. So even if I were to continue doing the dry on dry right there, it would work. So remember to use your washcloth if you are starting to rub your fingers a little too much, like I was doing. Also make sure that you're using like an old washcloth and not your mom's favorite washcloth. You don't want any to go on trouble. So make sure it's a dirty washcloth. So right before I pull up the tape, I just want to go over the three processes, the techniques that I showed you all. Come back down just a little bit. That's good. All right, so just so you all remember, there is the normal way, which is dry on dry, this way, dry on dry. There is the second way, which is where you dip your chalk into water for 10 seconds. So you just count it out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that is the wet on dry method right there. Wet on dry. And then there is the dry on wet. And that is when you need a paintbrush and a cup of water. You got a paintbrush. And you wet it. And then you take a dry piece of chalk onto your wet. And that is dry on wet. So dry on dry, wet on dry, dry on wet. Those are the three processes. And like I said, if you have a different way of applying chalk to pavement, comment below and show us so that we can all join in on the fun. But now it's time for the big half reveal because I didn't get all of it. This is probably the most fun part too. It's kind of satisfying watching it form. So I don't know if you all are noticing, but where I've done the, if I've used either of the wet processes, there hasn't been a lot of dust shadowing it, but like this one was just the dry on dry process, and there's kind of like a halo effect. So if you want that, it's kind of cool looking. You can definitely use it to your advantage. Make something really neat. But if you don't, then the wet on wet method is the way you go, or the dry on wet or wet on dry method is the way you want to go. But that's it. Ta-da! And that is how you make a mosaic out of chalk. Whew. I hope y'all really enjoyed that lesson. I know I did. I can't wait to see what y'all come up with. Please, please, please share with us so that we can see it. Yeah, I can't wait to see y'all next time and do more art. Bye.